Hello there guys and girls, this is the Prussian Prince with my review of Total War Attila. Let me start with the graphics and performance of the game, as this was an issue in the previous version of the game that I got, the preview build. The game feels and looks similar to how Rome 2 is, basically, but there might be a bit more detail in terms of vegetation, at least in the campaign map. As you can see, vegetation is extremely well detailed everywhere, so there are some improvements in that regard, I would say, but overall it is quite similar to Rome 2. Now let's move on to performance. Overall, the performance is improved from the preview build, but the campaign map, siege battles, and naval battles seem to still have some issues regarding the FPS. The performance still isn't quite good in that regard, especially naval battles from what I have seen. Again, it might be because of graphic drivers, or that the code isn't fully fleshed out yet, which maybe means that the full version could in fact perform better than the current build that I have here, the review build. But regardless, the land battles still perform quite well. Just siege battles, naval battles, and campaign map that seem to have some issues. But I do still get quite high FPS in the campaign map as long as I don't zoom in, but zooming in causes a lot of issues. Like I drop down to like 20-30 FPS, and I'm not even running the game on the highest possible settings. But yeah, let me show you how the different options are in the graphics menu. So here we have the graphics menu with different tiers for some specific options. For instance, you have now under shadows you have max performance, performance quality, and max quality, whereas you would see low, medium, high, very high, ultra, and extreme before, for instance. Now it's it goes from max performance up to max quality on this particular setting, and a lot of other settings, for instance all of these ones. But there are also a few new options like the porthole quality, which basically refers to the character models. They can be 2D or 3D in advancing character windows. Then you also have screen space reflections over here. It was not an option before. There are also there's this proximity fading option, which I believe is turned on by default in Rome 2 and is not an option here, so that is quite cool. You still have a benchmark that you can load in case you want to test how good your FPS is with your settings. And yeah, those are basically the graphics settings. Let's move on to the features of the game. So the first thing that you might be looking at when you launch the game is the prologue. It's sort of like a tutorial which initiates you into the game. Is that there are two chapters, the Battle of Olbia and Hunnic Invasion. Basically a mix of battles and campaign with the advisor. He helps you a lot to understand how the game is played and what you need to know about it. And that is basically the prologue. I might be showing you a video of it later. But let's move on to the campaign itself. So this is the Grand Campaign faction selection screen. It is very similar to Rome 2's, of course. And here again you pick your culture first, and then the faction that you want. For instance, barbarian kingdoms have the Franks and the Saxons, great migrators have Ostrogoths, Alans, Vandals, and Visigoths. Diplomatic tribes, you have the Huns. Roman Empire, you have the Eastern Roman Empire and Western Roman Empire. Eastern Empires, you have Sassanids. And there's a lot of different information that you can see over here. Something important to mention is that for victory objectives, you have a minor victory, military victory, cultural victory, and divine triumph. which is a lot different compared to Rome 2 was. I believe you didn't have as many types of victories, so it is refreshing change. You have, of course, campaign settings over here. Nothing new, I believe. Autosave to cloud is, of course, a pretty nice feature here that you may use if you wish. There is, of course, still the difficulty setting from easy, normal, hard, very hard to legendary. And let's see. You have the faction description over here with the religion type, the faction leader, cultural trait, and faction trait. For instance, New Kingdoms, minus 50% building conversion rate, and Ferocious Warriors, minus 50% penalty from casualties suffered, and then melee damage to integrity. Melee damage plus 10% for every 25% casualties suffered by a unit. So that is a fairly interesting faction trait as well. But there are also faction intros, which I'm not going to show in this review, of course. And let's get into the campaign itself. So this is the campaign map, but let's look at take a look at the technology tab to begin with. So here we go. Technology tab is very similar to the preview build. Nothing too much different, but you do require some funds to research some of the technologies. As you can see here, have enough to research this one, but we need 10,000 for this one. We only have 7,000 at the moment, so we do lack the funds in order to research that. But I mean, it's not necessarily a bad thing. That's the same from the previous version. I mean, I didn't find anything wrong with the technology tab. In fact, it's fairly nice that it's now divided into two separate trees, which you can see very easily by taking a glance at them. Whereas in Rome 2, you had to just continue clicking all the different tabs to see everything. I think this is much nicer than before. The faction overview tab over here has also gone through a lot of changes. There's now a dedicated family tree which allows you to take actions on your descendants. For instance, over here, see that there are a lot of options, like declaring heir. That is the most important one generally. And you can plan your future through this, future of your family tree, that is. And you have some governors over here which you can assign. You have to left click someone in your tree and then click over here, and then you assign a governor. So you have 1 out of 1 because basically you have like one province you command. And here you have the dominion stat, measure of influence over your faction, your power over the people, total influence of your family versus that of non-family members. So it does define your power. You have other nobles here and candidates. Power, we have respectable power as we are at 56%, and as you look over this bar, see the different effects that steps will give you. For instance, we are at the 5th step. This gives us +2 loyalty, -1% tax rate. Here, this gives us +1 loyalty, +1 integrity, all forces, and -1 public order. If we continue getting more though, we get more tax and more integrity, but loyalty, growth, and public order start getting lower and lower, which is going to be very, very important to keep in mind. So basically, the stronger you grow, the more difficult it is going to be for you to maintain your provinces satisfied. And here you can see the details of your the characters. If you so wish, then you can hide or show the deceased if that is what you want to do as well. There's a summary over here. You can start migration. This will abandon all settlements in your kingdom and turns your armies into hordes if you desire. Shows you different stats about your faction as well. Diplomacy. Records, this is fairly new. here you can select which event types you want to see. There's an event feed over here, but of course, since we just started the campaign, it's not going to show too much. You can filter out this message of this type. You can view the event, or you can upload the records if you wish. There are a lot of stats over here. And that is basically the faction overview tab. Let's move on to the hordes. So here we are. I have now loaded up a campaign as the Hunts. Let's go over their mechanics. So hordes have different stances: encampment, raiding, and mass migration. Each of them has very different effects. For instance, being in the encampment stance allows that army to potentially be self-sufficient, as it buffs its economy. And then you have, let's see over here, have not only just the army view, but also the building view in this army. You can upgrade and construct buildings as you wish, basically. And this is going to persist even if you move your army. They are not going to be destroyed at all. Again, if you do desire, you can, well, it doesn't have the option over here because we are the Hunts, but if you were to be, if you were to be a horde and you actually got a city and you conquered it, you would actually become an actual, wow, I'm using actually a lot, you would become a faction, just like your standard Rome 2 faction, and from then on, you would act like one as well. But you could always just go to here to like summary and abandon all your provinces and become a full horde again. Because once you are a non-horde, you will not be able to make your armies encamp and then like put them in all the different stances that the horde gets. So that is something to keep in mind. But those are basically the horde mechanics, or at least the gist of them. Let us move on to the general details tab, shall we? So we have the general details over here. Let's look over this this window. So again, there's a lot of information displayed here, which is very nice. I mean, it can be a bit scary at first, if I may say so myself, to look at all the information the game presents you, but it is good that they give you all this information. More information is generally better than less. But anyway, the tab has been revised, and you can now make decisions more easily regarding how you want to spend your skill points. You see the whole skill tree over here. You don't know, in Rome 2 you had to know the skill tree beforehand to know where you wanted to get to, but now you have an overview over here of the ones that aren't even unlocked, and basically what you're gonna be getting to at the end of the skill tree. And you have the skill points over here. That is the stat which shows you how many you have. At the moment this general has 0 because he hasn't really been in combat. For several stats over here, this is his rank. He is a general, the level of authority. You can see each level does basically has a different effect on the army here. More morale, the higher you go, and the commander aura is also boosted by 50% from level 6. As for cunning, see that on the lowest level is pretty terrible. Everything gives your units really bad stats on the lowest levels, essentially. So level 3 is the neutral effect level, as you can see. And here you will be able to see how good maxing out authority, cunning, and zeal would be for your armies, because you would get such huge bonuses. Here you can see the age of your general, the influence, and his current loyalty stat as well. Here you have his traits. He's a looter, he's keen, he has the fear trait. This is an ability that you can use in combat. And his household over here, and his wife. And if you put your cursor over this icon, you'll be able to see the kind of effects she gives. Of course, there's an effect summary over here by the general, thanks to his character traits, then his thanks to his wife and the different abilities he has based on different categories, separated I mean. And that is basically the tree. You can of course go to the records tab of this general if you so desire. You can replace this general, or you can view the family tree. But that is all about generals. And oh, never mind, wait, I forgot to show something about generals. So over here, when you select an army, you will see some information in the bottom left, again regarding his authority, cunning, and zeal skills. You see his effects here too. But then you have two interesting bars. One is the integrity, and the other is action points. And action points are the normal ones in Total War. If you don't have any action points, you can't move on the campaign map. As for integrity, well, it is pretty bad if you run out of integrity. Let's put it that way. This button allows you to zoom into current selection onto your general. And here you have the force details as well. We have the emblems that you can use for the force. Integrity can be decimated. Well, it will increase integrity if you do destroy 10% of the current army, something you hopefully should never have to do. As you can see, there is a growth here. There is a horde. There's fertility. Effect summary. Because of horde encampment, we get all these different boosts. The traditions of the force as well, which you can upgrade as the general skill tree. Very similar to that system. But anyway, let us move on to the next point, which is custom battles. So here we have the custom battles tab. You can choose from whatever faction you want. Alans, Eastern Roman Empire, Franks, Huns, Ostrogoths, Sassanids, Saxons, Vandals, Visigoths, and Western Roman Empire. Again, I don't have the Viking fathers pack enabled. So the Alans, for instance, they have all these different units separated by category that you can pick from over here. Similar to Rome 2, you have the increase unit rank here, which costs apparently 10 per upgrade. Maybe changed in the review version, in the full version. Again, this isn't the full version, this is just the review version, so features are subject to change. Here you can reset your army or auto-generate armies if you so desire. It changes your skill type as well as your army. Here you can save your army setup, you can load your army setup if you want. And there are of course different generals compared to Rome 2. You have 5 different generals, I believe. It's the same for all the factions. Rally, Race, Fast Charge, Fear, and Warcry. Basically that determines the kind of abilities that the generals do have. And then you can select the maps over here. The type of battle: land battle, naval, ambush, coastal, river crossing, city, port, assault, unfortified town assault, and fortified port assault. You see the presets over here. We have the usual battle map selector. You can zoom in and zoom out if you so wish with the mouse wheel. And you can just click on the battle map and it will change here. This is very cool now though, because you can actually type in the values that you want. Before you had to actually click on the battle map selector, so this is a nice change. You can see the map upgrade, non or encampment, attacker direction over here. These are filters for the map, presets, history, and favorites. As you can see the presets for land battles, we have cobblestone, plains, Pyrenees, swamp, and woodland. For naval battles, of course, different ones. Ambush battles, coastal battles, river crossing, City assault, port assault, fortified town assault, and unfortified port assault. So a lot of different options that the game gives you in custom battles. You have the settings as well. Funds, small, medium, large, ultra, custom. Custom, you can put in whatever value you want here, basically. And the seasons, spring, summer, autumn, winter, same as Rome 2, time of day, weather, battle difficulty, time limit. The wind, which I believe wasn't an option before in Rome 2, so nice to see that it is there. Have battle realism mod and large armies, again allows you to control up to 40 units. Then the unit info, which has changed. As you can see now, you see very interesting information over here. In this part of the screen of unit info. For instance, excellent attack against cavalry for the Vandal warlords, has missile weapon and high health. This is very important information about the unit, but sometimes it is a bit redundant. Like for instance, let's go back to the land battles and look at some specific units that I want to look at, because they do say some fairly interesting things. Okay, so let's look at warhounds. It says they have war dogs, which is quite funny to say the least. Like, this doesn't really help you too much. Of course, they would have war dogs, as they are warhounds, right? So it doesn't make too much sense that it gives you this information. It is a bit redundant. But anyway, you can see different stats of the units here. But I'm going to be going into that more with the multiplayer reviews. This is mostly a single player review. But again, some pretty redundant information over here with for units. But I guess as a new player it might be useful. But anyway, let's move on to the next thing I want to talk about. So I loaded a campaign as the Franks. Let's look at the strategic overview. You can press tab if you want to open it, or just click this button. I'm going to click this button because it is just easier. And let's look at it. We see that, of course, we can scroll around by using holding down the left mouse button and then dragging around the screen the opposite direction you want it to go. And then up here you have the geographic mode if you want, of course. You can also toggle this on, the faction ownership, military force filter, agent filter, settlement filter, siege filter, resource filter, the type of map mode that you want. There are a lot of map modes compared to Rome 2. That is for certain over here. You can see all the different, the legend over here. So it allows you to show between predicted and current public order. So fairly cool strategic overview map mode, I should say, or map, because it's not really a map mode, I guess. But anyway, let's look at the other interface things, as I like to call them. Have the bar over here, have the current treasury, predicted income. You can see our income is 4,580. The scenario with 3,448 expenses. So we do have a profit of 1,132. Most likely, it is predicted. Then the food surplus over here, and the seasons. It is currently spring. See the previous and next season as well, and how close they are to getting. We see the year here, some effects of the faction. This is you have the cultural, the faction traits, the power and imperium, and a lot of different factors that the game allows you to see. Now let's look at the top left. Here you have the familiar menu, chat, which isn't really necessary in single player, Total War Encyclopedia, and the advisor. In the top right you have the event messages, regular stuff. Forces, here you can click, you can filter by name or sort by type, sort by name, sort by size. You have the provinces over here, your provinces and other provinces you know about and their income. Here of your provinces you do see your food supply, your public order, and the income. As for the factions tab over here, well, you see if you have trade going on with them or not, if you can get trade with them and you don't have currently, or if you can't get trade with them at all because there's no sea route or something. And let's see. Alright, we have the trade and finance tab to look at. I have not shown you that yet. You have the tax levels. You have the tax effects of the current tax level. Here you can see the income because of immigrant population, because of taxes, trade, and other factors. You can see what other factors are. Total income and income next turn. Those predicted public order next turn. This is fairly normal. As you saw this in Rome 2 as well. The maintenance, total expenditure. Here you have the trade, which is fairly interesting. You can see which important goods you're producing here, which trade goods you're producing, and the ones that you are importing. You can see that we're importing a lot, and the resource value is quite high for them as well. As for our trade partners, they are the Western Roman Empire and the elements. We have gemstones with the elements. We have a land route to them, sea route to Rome. Tariffs, first timber, all of different trade routes, and the value of the trade over here. Total value of exports 407, and that is basically the trade and finances tab. Well, especially with the summary over here, gives you a lot more information. Now let's look at the diplomacy tab. Again, very similar to Rome 2, but you do have additional map modes up top here that you can use if you wish. You have your faction always here on the left side with your faction name here, your current ruler, his name, his age, the ranking, trustworthiness, and imperium. You can see your defensive allies, your military allies, your enemies, and your trade partners over here, what you're importing, what you're exporting, and the income. The trade forecast, basically. Then you see the trade goods that you're importing and exporting over here. And let's see the known factions. You can also make this larger if you wish, which is fairly cool. Here you have three options. Set war coordination, target. This is very interesting because it makes your allies do what you want them to do, basically. So no longer you're gonna be like, please allies, help me attack this province, help me take it, basically. Right here you can of course clear the target, and this is the zoom to target button. And of course lots of filtering over here that you can do by name, by strength, by regions, by treaties, by trade, and by attitude. You can see if you have NAPs or trade agreements, or if they like you, if they don't like you in terms of relationship, and all the different factions over here. Let's try initiating diplomacy with someone. Have
without idle purpose, and all will be well.
The balance of power,
home after all.
Which does affect how things, how your diplomacy offers are going to be treated. Then you have the payments that you can offer here. You can type values if you want, for instance 505. So you don't have 405. So for instance 405. Okay, I'm not gonna call it 405. Have the minimum of 300. Maximum of 3,000. You see their economic power as well. You can offer a gift, like small gift or medium gift. You can't offer actual money. Well, you give actual money, but you can't type the values that you want to give them. But this is going to boost relationship. As for demanding payment, well, your economic power is weak. And let's see, you can also do a lot more stuff like trade agreements, military access, NAPs, military alliance, declaring war or asking them to join war, or you joining the war on their side. Defensive alliance, make tributary state. This is an interesting one because they are pretty defensive and they will give you money each turn. Yeah, that is the diplomacy tab. Not too much else to show about it, I suppose, other than how the traits of the faction you're dealing with are at the moment. So you see they're reliable, they're aggressive, traditionalist, expansionist, the Saxons, and religiously intolerant. Alright, so that is basically the diplomatic tab. And let me start talking to you about the AI. So here I'm going to be showing you a battle against the AI to demonstrate the AI, but anyway, it still doesn't seem to be very difficult to defeat. It has an overwhelming advantage over you. It still isn't quite up to par with what a player can do. It does, however, seem to make some interesting maneuvers in battles to try to catch you off guard, but it doesn't happen very often, which is a bit unfortunate, I suppose. But it is difficult to make proper AI, as very few games have good AI, I suppose. But the campaign AI, on the other hand, does seem to be proactive diplomatically. AI factions will constantly try to make deals with you, such as arranging marriages, trading, asking to join their wars for money, and more. For the music in the game, well, I have it turned off at the moment. Let me just turn it on so you can hear it. It is quite nice, at least I would say so. Again, music is fairly subjective. People will like different things. But yeah, let's look at the different battle interface buttons. So over here you see in the bottom left all the different details. You can close these details, of course, but I would like to close that instead. You can see what type of melee cavalry you are using in the battle, and the tier of the unit. It is tier 3. You see the amount of kills it has, the experience, the number of men, all the abilities it has, and you also have you can still have the usual groupings. However, a nice change, a very welcome change in my opponent, is that instead of just having to, compared to the regular left-click unit drag that you had in Rome 2, which was difficult to use, now you can use it while holding down Alt and dragging, selecting units and then holding down the left mouse button while holding Alt down, of course. So this is much better than how it was in Rome 2, and this makes the feature left click unit drag very, very useful, as it now has a modifier key to go with it, which is Alt. And that is very, very, very nice, I feel. So you have abilities on your units, very different compared to how they were in Rome 2. A lot more units, like with rapid advance, for instance, or wedge formation. Not sure how useful wedge formation is still, of course, but units like let's see. Oh, these guys haven't actually charged. Okay, I'm gonna pull out here. Yeah, I'm using debug camera, which does allow you to zoom out more if you wish. It is basically works the same way as in Rome 2. Just edit the preferences file here. Let me start charging the AI. And not actually trying to win this battle. I'm just demonstrating how the game is. Just give mass attack orders. Let's pull out over here. Let's charge this unit. Let's charge over here. So the Thracian warriors have rapid advance as well as headhunt. Headhunt no longer gives a lot of unit stats as well, just basically beefs up your unit in terms of morale, so that it doesn't rout as easily. I have some spears that I can start using to start flanking. You have the regular heavy shot, flaming shot, and whistling shot in game as well. Precision shot still exists, which is quite nice. Start flanking the AI. Here I'm engaging the general. Here I got rid of its archers. And you can see that the AI isn't too great, I suppose, but I suppose it is to be expected. Let's start activating rapid advance on the general. But I mean, the AI does have a lot of units in comparison, so maybe it is going to pull off something in this battle. So I gave it a lot of infantry units, but I do have more cavalry than it. And cavalry is actually pretty good in this game, but let's see, let's start rallying our troops. Now rally is a different ability, you don't just press it. You're more like, you press it and then click on where you want to rally your units. It's not, it is an area of effect ability, but it doesn't really just do it in the radius where your general is. You have to click it somewhere. And there you basically select the radius now where you want to use it. Going to pull out my general. You have steady on a lot more units as well, which is nice. And it does tell you the abilities that units have. So here I am crushing this flank. This general is actually dying to my Typhali cavalry because my cavalry is quite strong here. You actually have crossbow infantry in the game as well, and you can now see if units have javelins very easily because you have this little blue bar over skirmishing units, which tells you how much ammo they have left, which is very, very useful in my opinion. Very, very useful indeed, I think.
Our men flee the field of battle.
And now you can't activate shield wall or hoplite phalanx while you are engaged in melee, which is good in my opinion. Let's disengage over here. Our units are taking too much damage, I feel. Let's kill their archers. Their general is starting to die. My general is still alive over here. Let's fire at that unit. Let's charge here and stop them for a bit. So over here the engagement is going well for us. I've got units free. Really, I am not using headhunt or any of the abilities at the moment. You can see when units are routing now, they have this white flag over them. They are shattered. They would blink if they're actually not just if they're not shattered, but rather they're broken. If they're broken, they can come back. If they're shattered, they won't come back. You can see the different unit effects if you put your cursor over this small arrow pointing up. It says rapid advance plus 50% speed. That's basically how you'll be able to see under what effects units are. You also see the threat value of units. Over here is this triangle, like the exclamation mark. Then if you press space, you can see their morale and their fatigue levels. They have red fatigue, which means that they are not looking too good. They're very exhausted, basically. So, looks like I'm going to be winning this battle. Let us zoom in. One thing I don't like though are the projectile trails. I think they look a bit odd. But overall I think the single player experience is quite nice from what I have seen so far. I have to engage my units here. And let's charge in. It's an armored legio actually routing off the field right now, so let's just chase them. A few more units that they have over here, so let us just zoom in and look at the carnage. In the minimap you can also make it smaller or larger if you wish. You still have fast forward, you have pause, slow motion, play for fast forward, and just normal forward. You can now end the battle. And we can save the replay if we want, load it, rematch, or end the battle. Let's just end the battle. And let's look at the statistics. So one thing that is odd is that it doesn't show kills anymore. I'm not sure why that was removed, because I think it was pretty nice that it showed the total amount of enemy kills don't see why it's removed. Of course, you still see the individual kills of your units and your opponent's units, or the AIs in this case. You see the battle duration and a little tip over here. You can turn an alliance mode on, by the way, which is in battle settings. It's a new feature which makes it easier to distinguish friends from foes. It changes the blue allies and red are enemies. Very, very nice. I think it's something new in Attila, but that is basically the AI. And yeah, I think that is my single player review. Not much more I can say. Again, I don't have too much single player experience myself. I mean, I've made some single player Total War Let's Plays, but not a lot, obviously, and more of a multiplayer type of person, so take all of this with a grain of salt, I suppose. I've tried my best to show you how the game is and allow you to take a look at it yourself, but personally I feel like the single player is better from Rome 2's single player. Not sure by how much, but I do personally enjoy it. For instance, like Eastern Roman Empire is quite hard to play. It's extremely hard to play, actually, because you kind of get crushed in the beginning and then you keep getting crushed and crushed. It's just really hard to pull off Eastern Roman Empire as you have so many enemies surrounding you. It is very, very difficult, but it's a nice challenge, I feel. And playing as the hordes might be fun as well. You could go from one area of the map to another and keep going as you lose your settlements. Fortunately or unfortunately, I suppose, depending on who is on where you want to go. But anyway, that is my review. Hope you guys found it useful, and if you want to see more, don't forget to comment, rate, and subscribe. Follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Google+. Share the video, and I shall see you next time.